Good morning, everybody, and welcome out to the Infusionsoft Mastermind webinar. My name is Scott Richens, and I'm excited to have y'all out here today as we're going to be covering leveraging LinkedIn for lead generation. We've got a special guest here on the call with us today, Carrie Switala of Magnetic Marketing Solutions, and I'll introduce her here in just a couple moments as we're getting started. But she's going to be our special guest today, talking to us about LinkedIn, and she's been doing a lot of training there. And we're excited to have her on the call with us today. I know we've got a few people that are still joining us right now, so I'm going to give you a couple of notifications on some things that we've got coming up here that I think you guys will be interested in. And then we will get right into the content. The first thing I want to make sure that you guys know about. We've got our implementation accelerator coming back. If you've heard about this one before, you've probably heard a lot of good things about it. I've been involved in all of the ones that we've done here over the last couple of years. The implementation accelerator is really the biggest. It's the biggest event that we do in terms of helping you get things done in your business. We bring the best and the brightest minds in the Infusionsoft community here together, and about 20 businesses is all we'll take into this one. And we bring copywriters and videographers and photographers and everybody that you need, Infusionsoft experts, to help you implement. It's all about implementation. If that's something that you're looking at doing here and you want to get set up for 2014, I highly encourage you to get back in touch with me. Just reply to the mastermind email that I sent you this week, and I will get you connected up with the right guys to get you here. I think we've even got a special here through the end of the week where if you sign up with us, we'll pay for your flights to get you down here. So anyways, check that one out. If you want more details, go to infusionsoft.com/accelerator. And join us here the first week of December. The other thing that we've got going on the following week is going to be Infusionsoft University. If you want implementation, then the accelerator is where you want to be. But if you want to learn Infusionsoft, then you're going to want to look at the Infusionsoft University. And we've got one of those here the rest of the year that's not sold out. And that is going to be here at our headquarters in Chandler, Arizona on December 9th through 12th. So if you want to find out some more details on that one as well, feel free to check out our website at infusionsoft.com/university. We've got 4 days of deep content that we dive into to really bring you up to speed on understanding how to use Infusionsoft and how to put it to work in your business. So the last thing here is just a reminder of where the topics come from. Today's topic, leveraging LinkedIn for lead generation, comes from the voting that you guys have done over at our website, mastermindwebinars.uservoice.com. What we've got there is a platform where you can vote up topics or submit topics that you're interested in learning about. And so I invite you to check that out. I've got a link in the notification webinars or notification emails that I send out to you each week, and you can go view topics that have been suggested by other people, and you can add your own topics if you don't see ones there listed that you think we ought to cover. So I invite you to check that out. Now, into today's content, I mentioned that we've got Carrie Switala here of Magnetic Marketing, and she's offered to be here today to talk about leveraging LinkedIn for lead generation. I met Carrie a few months ago at our Infusionsoft University. She's an Infusionsoft user herself, and she was here in the building, and I had the chance to chat with her and learn about what she does. And heck, while she was here, she actually put on a LinkedIn training session here in our building for some local businesses and such. She's the Chief Creative Officer at Magnetic Marketing Solutions, and she's been doing a lot of learning and development for quite a number of years. And I was really impressed with the learning environment that she created and her ability to teach and deliver her message. And so I invited her, when this topic bubbled up, I invited her here on the call to go ahead and share what it is that she shares with small businesses. And typically she goes out and she'll do seminars like this and sessions like this, that she'll do some paid sessions. And she's been kind enough to come here today and share really the top 3 tips that can make the biggest difference in your LinkedIn usage. So I'm going to kick it over to Carrie here at this point. Carrie, welcome to the call today.
Oh, thank you very much, and thank you, Scott, for the great introduction and for the opportunity. I'm super excited to share with you some effective strategies for using LinkedIn. So just a little bit about my story. I've been on LinkedIn for the past 10 years, so basically since it initially came out. And at that time, LinkedIn was seen more of as a job search tool, mostly, or something that you joined because you got an invitation from someone, and basically that's where it ended. You might have joined and never done anything with it. Well, prior to owning my own business, I was the marketing director for an accounting and payroll firm. Pretty exciting stuff. When the social media hit the business world, I was tasked with identifying how our accountants could actually use it to add more clients and grow our firm. So I spent a lot of time researching LinkedIn, trying new strategies, three of which I'm going to highlight today. Um, and since then, I've been consulting on LinkedIn and holding different workshops around the country and really focusing on how small business owners can use it. I believe it works. I walk the talk. I spend probably on average 15 to 20 minutes a week on LinkedIn and generate 2 to 3 new referrals directly from LinkedIn. So like I said, I believe it. I know it works. And being a small business owner, I understand too the need to not be able to have to spend a ton of time to try to generate leads on LinkedIn. So I'm going to show you the power of LinkedIn. Right now, LinkedIn's got over, I believe it's now 225 million users, and they're averaging about 2 new users every second. Whoops.
I just sent control over to you there so you can show the PowerPoint
Awesome.
that you've got. There we go.
Perfect. So it's got 2 new users every second, and 42% of the users are updating their profile regularly. Now, I would bet if you looked at this or took a look at this statistic even a few years ago, that probably would have been well under 15%. But what's happening is a lot of small business owners, whether they're business to business or business to consumer, are seeing the power of LinkedIn and how it's different from Facebook and Twitter and how it can be used in a different manner as well. Another interesting fact that 35% of users are accessing it daily. I told Scott the other day when we were talking about it, I think LinkedIn is becoming kind of the dark horse. I still think there is definitely a need for Facebook and Twitter, but a lot of people are just looking for something a little bit different and a little bit more targeted, and LinkedIn provides that. So they're kind of coming in and starting to snatch up more users as well. There's also currently executives from all the Fortune 500 companies. So if that is your target market, you are definitely in the right spot, and investing more time in LinkedIn would be worthwhile. And then over 65% of the users are outside of the United States. And the reason why I highlight this is because as we become, with the technology and all of the resources we have available, more and more people are doing business outside of our country and reaching out to new business opportunities abroad. And so as more and more users come on from countries outside of the United States, that opens development opportunities for you too. And probably the most important statistic here is that currently LinkedIn has the highest visitor to lead conversion rate at 2.74%, which is 3 times higher than Twitter and Facebook. So now that you can see the power of LinkedIn, I want to take a look at the #1 LinkedIn myth. And here it is. It's not about you. It used to be when LinkedIn started, you would basically upload your resume, highlight all of your successes and everything that you did, your products and services, and how great you were. Now it has become more customer centric. So when a prospect is reading your profile, so if they search for either your industry or your profession or you specifically, they're looking actually in what's in it for me. What information can you provide? And there's really 5 key things that they're looking for. They're looking for how your products and services can help them, educate them, entertain them, and save them time and money. So the focus has really shifted, and when you're reading your LinkedIn profile, it should really be directed to your target market and your ideal client. A shameless plug here for the book Utility, and it's Y-O-U, Tility, by Jay Baer. he talks all about how our society is changing and our need for information. If you think about it, even 5 years ago, the number of smartphones that were out there were, slim to none. Now everybody has a device, and they can get information very, very quickly. So in this book, it actually talks about how do you keep up with that. And consumers, I think back in 2010, on average, would take about 5.3 sources of information for them in order to make a decision. In 2011, that number doubled to 10.6. So what that means is the consumers are hungry for information. I often find that when I go to meet with a prospect, they've already researched my company, they've looked at my website, they've looked at my LinkedIn profile, my Facebook profile, both personal and business related. They have a ton of information, so they are armed and ready to go and probably pretty far along in their decision on whether they're going to utilize my services or not. So making sure that your profile speaks to your ideal client is probably the number one tip to take away from today. So now that you know it's not about you and that it's about your customer, I want to dig into the LinkedIn profile. If your profile is not set up correctly, if it's not geared towards your ideal client, it's not going to do much for you. So with that, I've got a couple things to review, and I'm actually going to bounce back and forth in and out of my profile so that you can see it and see where I'm looking. So we'll go over here. One thing to note is I do have a premium account, and that is, it's the $19.99 a month account, and what that allows me to do is it gives me a little bit more features than just the basics. So if things will look a little bit different, that is exactly why. So first thing when it comes to your LinkedIn profile is think of it almost like a book, especially if you do a lot of reading. When you're walking through Barnes and Noble and you're trying to decide which book to read, oftentimes it's the cover that gets your attention. So the color, the image, how professional it looks if you're looking for a professional book, or if it's action, how action related it looks. So when you think of your LinkedIn profile, you should almost think of it as a book. You want to have, number one, a picture that's going to draw people in. You want to have, your goal with your profile should be that people, as they're looking at it, they want to continue on. They want to keep turning the page to see what's next and to learn more about you. So we're going to take a quick look here at my profile. The number one thing that you'll notice is if you've ever had someone take a look at your profile or you've done a search on LinkedIn, if you don't have a photo, they're simply going to click off of you and click onto somebody else. So having a photo is really key. I highly recommend having a professional photo taken, or at least one that well represents who you are. The second piece is looking at your headline, and your headline is actually what appears right under your name. It's kind of your 30-second LinkedIn bumper sticker. So this should really tell people, engage them, what do you do, and kind of draw them in. So if they read it and go, oh, she's a LinkedIn trainer, that's something I want to learn more about. So making sure that you have a catchy headline and that you're not being too abstract. I've seen sometimes where people want to take their profession and spin it into something really creative because they think it would be really cool and it would set them apart. And what tends to happen is that, as I said before, we are a society that's thrives on information, but we also aren't going to spend a ton of time digging for it. So if it's not quickly accessible, we're not gonna go any further with it. So if you've got a really abstract title, people are probably, if it's not clear what you do, they're probably just going to click onto someone else. They're not going to take the time to dig in and find out more about your company. So making sure that your headline is catchy but yet clear. The next piece is making sure that your profile is complete. And where you can find this here is if you're logged into your profile, on the right-hand side, you'll scroll down and you'll see the profile strength. And what you want to see is all-star or 100% complete. And what that does is if someone comes to look for your company or to look for your industry and they come up here to this search bar and they enter in your category, if your profile isn't as complete as your competitor will appear above you. And if any of you have ever searched either on LinkedIn or on Google, you know that oftentimes anything beyond page 1 doesn't get seen. So you want to make sure that your profile is complete so that you appear above your competition. The other reason why having it complete is so important is that's how LinkedIn finds connections for you, and that they can make those recommendations for people that you might know. So if you look here, the people you may know is based on the information that you've put into LinkedIn. So that is how it draws upon more connections for you. The next piece that is really important is because obviously we are the ones that are entering all this information into our profile. So we're basically saying to people that they need to trust us, that what we wrote is true and legit. You've probably heard of social proof. The recommendations are social proof. So when you take a look at if someone's reading my profile and they're seeing that I say that I do email marketing and that I'm good at this and I'm providing results, and then they read what Cheryl here says and about talking about my services and how well I've worked, now that's providing social proof that what I've said is true. So it just gives me a little edge on the credibility factor. So when it comes to recommendations, on average, they recommend 2 to 3 recommendations per profession or per position that you've held. Now, I've had some people that say, okay, well, I've been out in the workforce for 15 years and I've had 10 different jobs. Should I get a recommendation? Should I get 3 recommendations for each one of those positions? Most likely that's going to overwhelm your profile and people aren't going to dig through all of that. So what I recommend is that you get recommendations on the positions that you've had the last maybe 3 to 4 positions, and especially taking a look at those that are relevant. If you worked at Burger King and flipped burgers 15 years ago, and now you're the CEO and there's really no relevance to what you're doing now, I wouldn't necessarily include that piece in there. So make sure that when you take a look at your recommendations that you're getting 2 to 3 for each position that you've held. The last and probably most important part when it comes to your profile is taking a step back, picturing your ideal client. And if they were sitting in front of their computer and reading your profile, would they hire you? Would what you have to say speak to them? So making sure that you take some time, and I'd recommend that you even do it today, because I know how we are with small business owners. We get busy and overwhelmed, but after we're done with the call, if you were to take 5 minutes and really hone in on who is your ideal client, and when it comes to LinkedIn, what information do you want to put out there to speak to them? And at the very end, once you've worked on your profile, if you're still unsure if it's really geared directly to your ideal client, I would recommend, if you've got a good relationship with one of your clients that you want to have more of, to reach out to them and just say, you know what, I'd really like to connect with you and have you take a look at my profile and see if it speaks to you. Would you hire me based on reading this profile alone? So it's very, very, very key that you make sure that you review your LinkedIn profile and that, once again, that it speaks to your ideal client. So now we're going to jump into one of the biggest struggles that most companies have is trying to figure out, okay, I've got all of this information, all of these products and services that we offer, and how am I going to take all of that information and boil it down really into 2 sentences about what I do in my profile and then a couple of bullets. They usually get pretty overwhelmed at that point, and a lot of times that's where it ends and they say, all right, this is too much for me to think about. So what I've come up with is kind of the perfect recipe for your LinkedIn profile summary. And what it should look like is, once again, a catchy headline, because if you think about it like a book, when someone sees your photo and the catchy headline, you want them to entice them enough to get down to your summary, so that they're going to start to learn more about you. And after they read your summary, they're going to go into your current position, and then to your experience and your recommendations. So each piece should kind of draw them on to the next and get them to turn the next page. So a catchy headline that clearly communicates what it is that you do. 2 sentences about how you help your prospects. And this can be more of a story or testimonial. One of the pieces that I've included actually on my website is, one of the things that I love about my business is helping my customers with their email marketing, and hearing comments like, Carrie, you know what, this has been so effective for me that I actually have to book out 2 extra days in my calendar just to handle all of the calls that were generated for my last email. So it's a way where you're telling a story, but you're not really focusing in on the you, and this is all about me. You're really putting it back on the customer. So 2 sentences, and then you need a bulleted list of the services and products that you provide. If you've got 50, 60 different products or services, really think about who your audience is on LinkedIn, and maybe the top 5 to 7 products or services that they'd be interested in. Obviously, people are going to go and they're going to click on your information. They're going to check out your website, so you don't need to put everything right in this summary. So making sure you just have a bulleted list, like I said, 5 to 7 items would be sufficient. And then having, if you need to explain a little bit more, having 2 to 3 more sentences. And the reason why I set it up like this is because we typically have different buyers. Some of us might have very emotional buyers, and others might have more analytical buyers, or a combination of both. So the analytical buyers are going to want more information, they're going to want more detail. So having that additional 2 to 3 sentences are going to help your basically ability to close that prospect. If they're an emotional buyer, or there are probably some of us right-brained people are just real quick, we want to look at the bulleted list, and that'll help us determine if this is the right person for us. So this is what I've identified to be a great recipe for your LinkedIn profile summary. One thing to also keep in mind is that most Americans read at or below a high school reading level. So don't be too technical. Make sure that it's simple for them to understand. So if you've got something that is very technical, how can you boil it down? And once again, this might be also a great opportunity for you to reach out to your current customer that you want more of, and say, how would you explain what it is that I do? Get to speak from them so it can make it easier, and you can take that information and write it right into your profile. So at this point, before we jump into some of the prospecting strategies, I want to throw it back to Scott and see if we've got any questions that I can answer.
We had a couple of questions that have been posted here, and for those of you that may not have been on the mastermind calls here before, feel free to interact with Carrie and I using the questions section there in GoToMeeting. You can just type in some questions. We'll take a couple of them here right now. Pat had asked, Carrie, you mentioned earlier a premium account. Are you going to talk a little bit more about why to have a premium account, and if not, can you speak to that here shortly?
Sure. Actually, I'll jump out of this for a second here. And where you can see this on your screen is if you look at your LinkedIn account, on the right-hand side, it should say upgrade. And when you click on that, that's going to show you the different options that are available. So depending on your industry, they've obviously got, these are the plans for a business executive, but they also have things for recruiting if you're in HR, if you're in sales, and you're using this for a lot of sales prospecting. There's different levels for each one. So right now I'm in the business premium, and basically you can see here what that gives you. Purely the only reason that I have the business premium, I don't use it to its fullest extent, I will admit. What I love is the who's viewed your profile, because I get to actually see everyone that has viewed my profile, where typically most of the free accounts, you're going to see about the last 5 to 7 people that have viewed your profile. And you'll see why when we dig into some of the prospecting strategies, why I find this one to be the most important. Another piece to clue you in on is that If you are connected to people or not connected to a prospect, so say I wanted to meet with the director of marketing at Target. If I'm not connected to them, I can't send them an email through LinkedIn. I have to be connected to them somehow. Well, what this does with the LinkedIn Premium account, you get to send 3 in-mail messages per month. So that can be anyone on LinkedIn. So I could virtually send it to the president if he's on LinkedIn. So that if you are using it for a lot of prospecting, might be a great opportunity for you as well. So those are really the 2 main things, or the 2 main pieces of why I use it. But if you go in once again on your LinkedIn profile and hit the upgrade, you can see what those options are there. So
Awesome.
hopefully that helps.
Awesome. And hey, there was one other one here from Bob. He was asking about names on that. He said, do you have any tips for common named people being found? For example, John Smith type names, if there's, thousands of people with that same name out there.
A middle initial works well. Beyond that, just making sure that you've got your profile updated, and obviously for you a catchy headline that speaks to what it is that you do is going to be crucial. But I would say putting in a middle initial would be a good place to start.
Okay. Awesome. So we've got a few more questions here, but Carrie's got more that she's going to be going through. So I'm going to hold those questions and we'll circle back around to those as we're getting towards the end.
Perfect. All right. So now that you know a little bit more about how your profile should be set up, and really I want to make sure that you start there, and then as I cover these 3 prospecting techniques, I also want you to keep in mind and be realistic. The biggest mistake I see with a lot of small businesses and just business professionals in general is the lack of consistency. So when we show these 3 different strategies, I'd recommend at least taking one that you can start with. You've got notes, you can take the rest, take note of the others as well, but find one that you can really stick with and make sure to implement, because the consistency is where you're going to see the return on investment. So with that, my number 1 most favorite strategy is reverse prospecting, or as I like to call, reverse stalking. So what I do, I look at this about at least 2 to 3 times per week to see who has viewed my profile. And you might be thinking, okay, well, why is that important? Well, for example, I have, who is now a client, I met with Mike, and Mike and I talked about his marketing and kind of the strategy and what we're going to do. And he said, you know what, Carrie, I'm really not interested at this point in moving forward. I've got a couple other things I want to try and give it a little bit more time before I move forward with you. So Mike and I parted ways with the expectation that we would follow up with each other in the next couple months. And he was going to go back to finishing what he was doing with his marketing. And it just so happened that as I was going in and viewing my profile one week, I noticed that Mike had looked at my profile. So, I drew a couple assumptions, but one of the assumptions was, he's viewing my profile. I wonder if he's thinking about my services again. And maybe this would be a time for me to reach out to him. So I'm going to escape out of here and show you where that is. So if you want to see who's viewed your profile, if you click on the profile button, click on who's viewed your profile. And as I mentioned before, I've got the premium account, so mine is going to show everyone that has viewed my profile, not just the last 5. So what I did is, when this popped up, I saw Mike had, I'll see if I can find one here that I'm connected to. There we go. So look at Annie here. So Mike had popped up much like Annie here, and I thought, well, I'm going to reach out to him. So I went over here and I clicked on message, because obviously we're already connected, and I didn't mention that I had saw that he looked at my LinkedIn profile. I simply sent him a note and just said, hey Mike, how's everything going? I said I would follow up with you in a couple months to see, how your marketing was moving along, and I just wanted to reach out and say hello. Literally 30 seconds later, my phone was ringing, and it was Mike. And Mike said, Carrie, you wouldn't believe it. It's so weird. I was just thinking about you, and all of a sudden I got an email from you. Now, I made sure I clued Mike in on the reverse prospecting after he became a client. But this strategy has worked for me time and time again, and literally can attribute thousands of dollars to my business from using this strategy alone, which, as you can see, took about 30 seconds. So here's how it works. When I log into my account and I check to see who's viewed my profile, I can take a look at someone like Jody. And I might look at Jody and go, oh, she might be a really great prospect for me. So what I'm going to do is we're not connected yet. I'm going to connect with Jody. Now, a lot of times, there's that whole big brother effect, whether people know that you can see this or not. I don't usually like to mention that. So I'll just reach out to her and say, Jody, I saw you on LinkedIn, and I thought, there might be some good cohesion between our businesses. I'd love to set up a time to, connect with you and learn more about your business. So it's more of a soft approach, and I think people are pretty receptive to that. So that is how I use it with the reverse prospecting, is to connect with people that are obviously looking at my profile, and then also if it's someone that I know, that I can go ahead and send them a message, much like Mike. So that is how reverse prospecting works. I'm going to jump out of here and show you the next. Actually, I'll stay right here because I think that'll help. The next strategy is taking a look at following companies. You might be thinking, okay, well, why would I want to follow a company? Well, it's amazing. You can gain a lot of insightful information that you can use for prospecting that company. So you can avoid cold calling, which I'm sure many of you would love to do, or if we could just get rid of that term altogether, I'm sure many people would be happy. But avoid cold calling and get warmer leads. So what I do, does anyone have a company that they'd like to look up?
And that's a question to the audience there. If any of you have a company, are you asking for somebody's company themselves? Specifically, Brian
Or just
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 mentioned
any company.
IBM
Okay, let's look at
as
IBM.
one.
So we're going to go up to our search bar here, and I'm going to type in IBM. And when I do that, when I click on IBM, these are all the different tabs of information I can see. So I can see on their home, these are their recent updates, things that they've been posting, maybe new products, new services that they've got coming out, the careers that they have, the products and services they have available, and different insights. What I really want to draw your attention to is how you're connected. So when you choose to follow a company, and maybe you're thinking, gosh, IBM, I've got a great product, or I'd love to do business with IBM. You can click on this, how you're connected, and you can actually see who is employed currently. So you can see current employees as well as past employees and what your connection is to them. So now, instead of having to try to dig around to find the right contact, you can see, oh gosh, I'm connected to, Shannon, or Vita Shannon. I'm going to reach out to her and find out, would my products and services be a good fit for them, and who would be the best person to talk to. So it's a lot of great information. And what you do then, I'm going to jump back here, is when you find these companies, you just click the follow button. And then you can, like I said, gain a lot of information and insights about that company to help you to better market to them. So that is following companies. Does anyone have any questions on that?
Go ahead and type any questions you might have there. Let's see. Looking through a few of these. Lauren asked, I have two types of clients, so I'm wondering if I should create a company on LinkedIn for one set of clients and then keep my personal profile for the other.
That is an excellent question. What I recommend you do, if both, so I've got a couple clients where they have really two different target markets. So one, for example, works with helping families prepare their kids for college. So, and that's more from the financial standpoint. So on one hand, their target market are the parents, because the parents are obviously the ones that need help with trying to figure out how they're going to fund their college education. On the other hand, they have the students that are their target market, because the students are the ones that are going to college that need the service, and either one can bring can send the other to the table. So either one can be a good prospect for them. So what we've actually done with them is on LinkedIn, they market to the parents, and on Facebook, they market to the college students. So
Hmm.
when it comes to your LinkedIn profile, I would actually recommend um, either addressing both in the same profile. So I work with small business owners as well as franchisees, and here's how I work with both of them. So you can do something like that, or really hone in and identify, is are these both of these target markets on LinkedIn, or is one more prevalent than the other?
So really understanding who the audiences are that are in those social networks.
Right, right. And not trying to be everything to everybody, because definitely LinkedIn has a different feel than Facebook. So it's definitely more of a professional business to business connection. So oftentimes things that even that you post on LinkedIn are going to be different than what you post on Facebook, or the style behind it. So if you can dig a little bit deeper into it, I think you'll find that either there's one that's more prevalent, or like I said, you highlight both within your profile and you address both of their needs. So good
Do,
question.
do you have any other best practices that you recommend for setting up a company? Tony was asking about that one.
The biggest thing with setting up a company, oftentimes if you've got, and LinkedIn may disagree with me on this one, but I would say if you have, if it's just you, I would tend to just use your personal profile and not set up a company profile, because really the information that you're going to be posting is what you'd be posting on your company page, and now you don't have to run two different pages, because of the likelihood is that one of them will fall off or you'll get overwhelmed. So as far as company pages go, I really see them being key for companies with 25 plus employees to be out there.
Okay.
So hopefully that helps answer your question.
If not, Tony, go ahead and post a clarifying question. I know we've got a couple other questions here, and I think Carrie's got one more section you were going to be going through.
I certainly
Is that
do.
correct? All right. We'll go ahead and shift back to that, and we will get to some of these other questions here at the
Perfect.
end.
Awesome. All right. So the last slide that I'm going to talk about, the last strategy, last but not least, is I'm a huge proponent of networking. And I imagine as many of you as small business owners are probably there as well. Um, and I'm sure you've all been to a networking event where Jane, who sells cosmetics, stands up and says, you know what, the perfect referral for me today would be anyone with skin. Well, I don't know about you, but that doesn't really conjure up any specific images for me, because I think pretty much everybody I know has skin. So what I like to do is think about how you can be more effective with your prospecting and your networking. One of the ways to do that is doing your research first. So say goodbye to the anyones, the everyones, the someones, and take a look, spend a couple minutes before you meet with a prospect or a networking partner to see who they're connected to. So the example I'm going to use today is Dan. And I'm going to go in here. And so if I'm going to meet with Dan for coffee today, Dan is a videographer that I do a lot of business with. So I'm going to type in Dan's information and I click the search button. So here is Dan. And I'm going to click on his click on his name, and I want to see who Dan knows. One of the great referral partners for me can oftentimes be photographers. So I want to see who Dan knows that is a photographer. So if I go here and I click on his connections, what it'll do is it's going to pull up all of Dan's connections. Well, obviously, I'm not going to take the time to filter through 500 plus connections. So you can click on that little magnifying glass here. And when you click on it, you can actually type in the name of an industry, a profession. You can search by area, by state, a whole variety of things. So I'm going to look for photographers. So I'll put in photographers. If I spell it correctly, it would probably help. And up pops, and sometimes these can be people that are currently photographers, or it could be that they were past, or it may be something that they dabble in. And it looks like we've got a couple different professions here. So if I look and I see photographers and I see someone that I want to talk to, and maybe that's Pamela Grover, the next time I'm meeting with Dan, I can say, you know what, he asked me, how can I help you with your business? What would be a good referral for you? I can say, you know what, Dan, I took a look at your profile and it looks like you know Pamela Grover. I would love to get some more insight on Pamela and if she might be a good lead for me. You can also check to see if you're looking for a specific area. If I'm going to look for Minnesota, his Minnesota connections, I can check to see who he knows here from Minnesota, and that might be once again another good referral for me. So making sure that you take that time, whether you're meeting with a prospect, a networking person, or if you're actually going to a networking event and you know some of the people that are going to be there, you can kind of arm yourself with taking a look at who they know first before you get there, so that you can make a targeted ask that's going to get a better return on your investment versus just saying, I'm looking for anyone with skin. So that is the last strategy that I'm featuring for you today. From that, I guess I'll turn it over to you, Scott, to see if there's any additional questions.
Yeah, we actually have. There's a lot of chatter going on here in the questions portion. A lot of people liking the information that you've been covering here today. One of the questions that popped up here, and I've wondered this one myself, and it's kind of related to the one that you just talked about here. Melissa was asking, what's your opinion about accepting LinkedIn requests from people you don't know or aren't extremely pertinent to your industry? I know myself, I get LinkedIn requests. I believe they're from customers and people that I've trained more often than any other social network. I don't always know who they are. I haven't met them personally. And I've faced that same question myself. Is that somebody I should connect with or not? What do you recommend there?
I get this question a lot, so I'm glad that they asked it. I connect with everybody. Unless I get a weird vibe from that person, you never know, like the 6 degrees of Kevin Bacon, or 6 degrees of separation. You never know who might be connected to someone else. And I actually had a story about that. I had met with a prospect who had connected with me on LinkedIn, and we were sitting down and talking, and it just so happened that I did my research before I met with him. Once I accepted his LinkedIn request, I saw who we had in common. And so when we were meeting, he was good friends with one of my best clients and hadn't made that connection. So he had done some research. He was searching for my type of company. My information popped up. He connected with me. And then when we sat down to have our meeting and to learn more about each other, I said, hey, I noticed that you're connected to Bill. It just so happens that I do work with Bill. Well, what was really interesting about that is because I made that connection and I did my research ahead of time, that kind of sealed the deal. So he's like, you work with Bill? Really? Well, tell me more about it. And that was pretty much the end of the deal. I mean, we worked together after that. So for me, you never know who might be connected to someone that you know. So I connect with everybody that sends a request unless I get a weird feeling or they're from another country and I don't, and their profile's in another language.
Okay, that just brought to mind all those people that post on Facebook and say, hey, I'm looking for this or I'm looking for that. Anybody know anybody? You can actually just go do your own research on LinkedIn and then reach out to specific connections to get those introductions.
Exactly.
Let's see. Barbara had a question here. And Barbara had said, I want to encourage people to go to my LinkedIn profile to join our LinkedIn group. How do I highlight a group or get people to join the group?
Joining the group, I mean, I would tend to make sure you do your research first, who would be a good fit. And so say, if, for example, if you were looking for a particular industry, like the cosmetics industry, and that those are the people that would be good for your group, you can actually come into the search bar and type in cosmetics. and it'll pull up a list of people that are connected to you. Oh, I look for cosmetic companies. Here we go. So I can look in, if I type in cosmetic professionals, and I can look to see, oh, these people might be good to fit to my group. Then you can simply send them a message or connect with them and say, hey, we'd also like to invite you to the group. You can also send them a message through LinkedIn if you are connected with them, by simply clicking on your little envelope here and going down to messages and sending them a message as well. So there's a couple different ways to do it, but letting people know what the group is about is key, and why they would benefit from being a part of that group.
Okay. Had another question here, and it's a little bit off topic. Pat had asked, will you focus on LinkedIn ads? The reason I say it's off topic is I know that's not what we were covering here, Carrie. But Pat was saying they wanted to leverage this option. Do you have a resource that you would direct them to or recommend that Pat check out here?
You know, if you actually just, if you go on to Google and type in LinkedIn ads, you can get a whole ton of information, and there's a lot of professionals out there that have written about LinkedIn ads. I've used them on occasion. For example, when I went out to do the Infusionsoft University, and I was, as Scott had mentioned, I was hosting an event out there. First of all, I had never ever been to Arizona, and I had one connection that I knew in Arizona. So here I am putting together an event in a city where I don't know anybody. And so I actually used the LinkedIn ads to reach out to some people in that area. So I targeted people in and around Chandler, and it was pretty effective. I got some, I didn't draw any registrations into the event, but I connected with more people that were out there. So as long as you're, just like with anything, as long as you're making sure that you've got a valid reason to be there and that you're really, really targeting it as much as possible, you will see some pretty good results from it. And just a plug too for Infusionsoft University. If you haven't been, I'd highly, highly recommend it. Sorry, I
Thank
had to
you.
do that.
Thanks. Let's see what else here. Another one. Lucas was asking, can you show how to change the profile details? Is that another one where you do a quick Google search and there's some solid videos out there for you?
Yeah, as far as changing like your settings and information.
I think so. This was asked a little bit earlier in the session when you were talking about optimizing your profile and making sure that you've got the right details there.
Sure. So if it's more from the settings standpoint and making sure that you've got changing the settings that you have on your profile, then if you click on your photo here, you can see privacy and settings, and that's where you can adjust, how often you receive connection notices, the endorsement notices, things like that. So you can simply click here to do that. Otherwise, if you're looking at editing your profile, then you're just going to come over to your profile button and you're going to click edit profile, and with each item you'll see like a little pencil or pen, and when you click on that, that's how you can change that information.
Okay, so just inline editing right there.
Yep.
Perfect. Let's see, going through a few others here. Renee was asking a question. It sounds like Renee was a little troubled here. She'd said, I noticed when I search for my title, compound pharmacy marketing or compound marketing, I come up on the first page, but not at the top, even though compound pharmacy marketing is my title. Why is that? And she had also mentioned that her profile was complete. So it was when you were talking about making sure that you're an all-star, you've got the 100% complete profile. Are there ways that you can boost where you sit in the searches there on LinkedIn?
Yes, most definitely. Actually, LinkedIn operates, they have their own formula, much like Google when you're typing in for search results. So if you were to identify your top 5 keywords that people would use to search for you, what you need to do then is make sure, first of all, you could actually go into your competitors, look to see who's above you and which keywords they are using throughout their profile. And then what you need to make sure that you do is you take those keywords and you highlight them in your headline here. As you'll notice, LinkedIn trainer is in my headline. And as you scroll through, when you get to my summary, you also notice that I mentioned LinkedIn here, I mentioned LinkedIn here, and I mentioned LinkedIn all the way throughout my profile, all the way down to your skills and expertise. So making sure that you identify really those, 5, maybe 10 keywords and using them all the way throughout your profile. That's how, in addition to, like I said before, LinkedIn has their own formula, and I don't have the exact numbers as to what that is, but if you have more keywords and your profile is more complete than your competitors, you'll appear on the top.
Awesome. Well, and that also speaks to a specific question Michael was asking, was how do you incorporate keywords into your profile? And it's really just determine what those keywords are. If you've got somebody else that's bumping up higher, great. Where are they incorporating and what words are they using? Do some research there.
Exactly. And the one thing I would say is if you've had like a past profession that it doesn't really apply to, you really can't use those keywords, don't just put them in there to put them in there. Make sure that it fits and that it's true. Where you can also really highlight it is through your skills and expertise. And this is probably one of the biggest questions I get asked from people is what is with all these endorsements? I'm so sick of seeing
Yeah.
all these endorsements, and are they really good? Well, I frankly find them kind of annoying because it seems like they're always popping up, and I'm thankful for the endorsements. But what they're doing with that is that all factors into that keyword search. So if someone's looking for your profession and say with online marketing, if I have 87 people and my competitor has 85, I will most likely appear above that competitor. So from that standpoint, I definitely accept all endorsements. Um, as far as giving endorsements, I'm still, more inclined. If I haven't used that person or I can't speak to them, I wouldn't endorse them. And I have had people reach out to me that I wasn't even connected to and ask if I would be willing to log in and endorse them. And they're from another state. I've never met them. We have one person in common, and I won't respond to those. I won't endorse people that I don't know, like, or trust.
Certainly. Well, and that's just looking at, your endorsement here is kind of, do you recommend that person take things offline? I always look at things online. You're like, hey, how should I behave online? Well, look offline. Would you endorse somebody, offline if you've never done any work with them?
Right,
If so,
exactly.
does your endorsement actually mean anything?
Right.
Let's see. A couple other ones that popped up here. A popular question was, how do you make yourself anonymous when viewing a profile? They were starting to catch on to the Big Brother aspect there. And how would you make yourself
Yes.
anonymous? There were a few on your feed of people that had recently viewed you that were not
Yes.
shown.
Um, and I get a lot of people asking me this question too. How you do it is you actually click on once again on your photo, and you go under privacy and settings, and that's where you can change all of your settings so that you become anonymous. Um, Unless you're doing a lot of heavy researching of your competitor, I don't really recommend it. I like to be a little bit more transparent, and here's why. So if I'm looking at so for example, I'll log in. So if I wanted to go and look at someone's profile, like if I'm prospecting them, I don't mind that they know that I'm looking at their profile, because oftentimes, especially if they're using the reverse prospecting strategy, they're going to see, oh, who's this person looking at my profile? So for me, I like it in that sense. I don't like it to be anonymous because I'm okay with them seeing that information, and it might open up a connection for me more so than just being anonymous.
Gotcha. So really leaving it open there for them to know that you were checking them out, looking at their profile, so that if they want to take some initiative there and reach out to you, then perhaps you're creating that connection.
Exactly. And the other thing that you can do too is if I'm really heavily prospecting someone on LinkedIn, um, I might be responding to their posts that they're putting out there and commenting on them. And then if I look at their profile, they're all of a sudden going, "Gosh, I wonder who this Carrie person is." And wow, she's given me, she's posted and commented on my LinkedIn post, and now she's checking out my profile. It might feed a discussion or provide a good introduction for us as well.
So I'm sensing keep your anonymous stalking over on Facebook.
Yes.
Another one,
Makes sense.
another one closely related to that. Let's see. Susan was asking. Often I see connections cannot be viewed, uh, and Susan was saying that she sees on your view making connections available. What do you think may be the mentality of hiding the ability to view my connections? Is that a feature that's
Um,
even there to just hide your connections from public view?
You know, I actually don't know the answer to that question right offhand. With how LinkedIn has changed things, they've with especially with all of the new accounts, I don't know if they allow you to do that anymore. Um, and honestly, I think where I'm just trying to see here if I can find it real quick. Um, when it comes to it, I think people can find that information very easily. And a lot of times, especially when LinkedIn first came out, it was, and I still actually hear that a lot in like the real estate industry. They're like, well, I don't want to put anything out online because my competitors might see it, or they might, jump into my LinkedIn profile and look to see who my clients are and start, poaching my clients. Um, there's enough places where they can find that information that I often find, just being, like I said, transparent. I don't have anything to hide, and if I have a good enough relationship with my clients, then I'm not really worried that someone's going to get taken away. So, from my perspective, I wouldn't do it. I would leave it just as it is. But I believe if it is something that you can change, it should be over in your privacy and settings. Yeah,
Sounds like that's the primary spot where all that information is
Yep.
housed. Okay. Let's see. A few others still coming in here. Parker was asking, "Are you a big proponent of posting or linking content?"
Yes. On average, as far as if you were to look at my recipe for success when it comes to LinkedIn, um, I post probably 3 to 5 times a week. And once again, it all goes back to consistency, and I will find different content. A lot of times, if we are connected on LinkedIn and you're also a fan on Facebook, the style and the type of content that I post on both can be quite different. So because you can't do a lot of, you know, photos oftentimes, on LinkedIn, I might post direct statistics, whereas on Facebook, I might have more of a fun edge and highlight a different aspect and put more content in there. But I definitely recommend posting content and linking to your content on LinkedIn as well.
Um, that, Sorry, I was checking out a couple questions here.
Sure.
If that one spoke to your question, awesome. If the question that was posted out here, if not, give me a little bit more clarification, and I'll feed that over here to Carrie. A few others that were popping in here based on some of the topics that you had mentioned. Mark was asking, how do you typically approach a high level exec, say a CFO, about your service or biz? You were talking about going in and doing some of that research and checking out companies and finding the people connect and then sending the in messages. Um, how do you approach that?
That's a good question. I would say it all depends on the type of person you're looking to connect with. A lot of times I have my more sneakier approach where I'll start to, if you're connected with them already, I might start responding to their posts and their comments just to kind of get your name tied in with them a little bit. So when you're looking at um, your LinkedIn news feed and to see if Tomas was someone I was looking to connect with and he was an executive and I'm already connected to him, I might start commenting on his post and just saying, wow, this is a fantastic article. I really appreciate your style, and just starting to kind of make a connection there so that he or she starts to see your name and starts to see how active you are on LinkedIn and that you're engaging with them. I think would make then a connection or an in-mail to them a lot more or a lot better received because they've already seen that you're active and that you're looking at their company and that you're interested in their company and what they offer. So if you were already connected to them, that's the approach I would go. If you weren't connected and you had the premium account and were going to send them an in-mail, um, that would be a little bit, I guess your approach then would depend on your product and what you were looking to do and kind of how you work your sales. I don't know that I can necessarily give a good example of that, but other than to say, I'd love to, connect with you and learn a little bit more about your business, or it looks like you've got, you know, X, Y, and Z, and I'd love to learn more about that. Something or an approach like that would I think be pretty effective. But I think it really depends on your industry and your business and who you're going after too.
Well, and the power of creating some familiarity there, it can never be underrated. I remember a friend of mine was knew he was going to have a meeting or an event where he was going to meet kind of a big wig in his industry, and so months beforehand he started doing his research on this particular person and getting an idea of who they were, and then commenting and getting his name in front of him on some of the different social media networks and doing some targeted ads on those networks as well. And then by the time he got to this event where he met the person, he got over to shake his hand and said his name and his company name. And the guy said, "Hey, I've heard of you," and it was just one of those things that had popped up in front of him over time. And that was enough to create the connection for him, where they then spun out a business deal after that.
Right, right. And it's funny that you mentioned that too, because it's really the same. Some of these same strategies can also be used on both Twitter and Facebook as well. And if
Yes.
you're really trying to kind of hone in on one particular, executive or company, I recommend going out to both, Twitter, LinkedIn, and Facebook, and really start doing the same thing, not being obnoxious about it, so that if that person posts, 5 times a day, that you're not responding to every single post and kind of falling all over them, but being very strategic about it. The more they start to see your name, and especially when it comes to LinkedIn, you don't tend to see, unlike Facebook, you don't tend to see a ton of likes and comments on posts. They're starting to see more of it, but it's not that common. So I know I've got people that are prospecting me that would be good referral partners for me, or I'd be able to generate a lot of business for them. And I notice that they oftentimes will comment or post on anything that I put out on LinkedIn. And they're doing that to stay top of mind with me and remind me that they're still there. So,
Gotcha.
and they didn't attend my class either, so they came up with that on their own.
Hmm. Getting some good feedback here along the way as well. Bob said he's been ignoring LinkedIn, and thanks to this webinar, he'll be revamping and paying more attention to it. So big thanks
Awesome.
to you for what you've brought here. Had another one here. John and Carlo were asking any tips for prospecting using our company page. Is there a way to use your company page to prospect as well?
Um, you certainly could, as far as who you. I'm gonna log back in over to one here. Go back to IBM for a second. I think the information that you put out there in the about section that you saw just disappeared now when I clicked on them. Um, the more information you put in here, and really much like your personal profile, the more that you kind of hone into who your ideal client is. Like we love working with small business owners with 5 to 25 employees, and helping them see a greater return on their investment by X, Y, and Z. So the more information you can really take, a lot of those things that we talked about when it came to your profile, on your personal profile, and use kind of those same strategies when it comes to your company profile, so that when people are looking at your page, you want them to basically read it and go, "Oh my gosh, that's me," or "Wow, that's a situation, that story is something that I'm currently dealing with." You want it to kind of pull them in. So yes, definitely you can take some of those same strategies and apply them from your personal page to your company page as well.
Well, and the way that I look at that, and I've explained that a lot of times when you're talking about any of your marketing that you have online, is, if you're a sales rep, somebody says something to you, you can then shift the conversation based on what they say. But
Right.
online, you typically can't do that. Instead, the way to enter their heads and the way to enter the conversation that they're having is to speak to the questions that your target audience is most commonly asking themselves. And then as they read that page, they still can get that sense of oh wow, like they get me, and they're starting to connect with the solutions, or they know that you understand them, and that's how you enter the conversation in their head.
Exactly. Exactly.
Let's see. Thanks for the question there, John and Carlo. Let's see. What else do we have? Wanted to ask one thing here. I know some of the people are dropping off the call and wanted to be sure and make any other recommendations. Is there anything that people that want to know more about LinkedIn, is there anything that you recommend that they do or check out?
Most definitely. Actually, I have my e-newsletter where I post LinkedIn tips every week. I will also be starting a Facebook group. So if you just simply text magnetic to 22828, you can join my e-newsletter list. And as the Facebook group rolls out here in the next couple weeks, because you've been to an event or been a part of a workshop that I've done, I am going to be starting a specific Facebook group for LinkedIn users and providing great tips there. I'd also welcome all of you to connect with me. And if you learn something great and you want to post a recommendation, even better, but just to connect with me and so we can learn more about each other's businesses.
Awesome. I noticed even as you were pulling up folks that had recently viewed your profile, I was noticing a number of folks that are here on the call, and some that have that I know are within the Infusionsoft community here. So looks like a number of folks have already started to do that. Let's see. Yeah, let's go ahead and keep this here on the screen for folks for a little bit. If you do want some more information on that, be sure to follow up with a text message there to Carrie and get on her list. She she laughed. She said, Scott, it might go out through Constant Contact. She hasn't fully shifted over to Infusionsoft yet, but the key thing that we'll always talk about here is get plan 1 in place, get version 1 in place, get it up and running, and that's the biggest thing. Systems aren't the biggest importance there. So let's see. Another one, Mark was asking, do companies or people you know you're following them, can you look at profiles or follow companies anonymously?
Not that I don't believe that you can do that.
Okay, so the companies will be able to know if you're following their company,
Yeah, and that's
their
much
company
like
profile.
yeah, much like following them on Twitter too. I mean, there's no like I said, I can't think of a reason why you wouldn't want them to know unless it's a competitor, but you know, competitors know that we're going to obviously follow them too and see what's going on and what they're doing in the market too. So I think that's kind of expected too.
Keeps you on your game. Everybody
Exactly.
knows. Gary was asking, will we be able to watch this recording? This again on recording. Yeah, Gary. I always post these up. If you go to help.infusionsoft.com/mastermind, that's where you can always see what the new topic is each week, as well as there's a tab that says Mastermind Archives, and you'll be able to go in and review this recording in its entirety. That should be up posted tomorrow. Let's see, had a couple other questions here. A lot of great feedback from people, really enjoying what was covered here. There were a couple questions here that, due to time, I'm going to go ahead and skip those particular questions. I know Carrie's got to get out of here. I want to be respectful of her time there. Let's see. Another question, another comment here from Brian. One of the most valuable mastermind calls he's been on. Thought he knew a bunch about LinkedIn and still learned a bunch there.
Awesome.
A couple questions that were also being asked here in regards to Infusionsoft and how some of this stuff ties in. Mark was asking, how does Infusionsoft use LinkedIn? Mark, I actually am not certain on that one. We've got a social media department here that runs a lot of that, and I haven't sat down and had conversations with them directly on how we're leveraging LinkedIn. So I wish I could speak to that one, but I'm not most up to date on what we're doing there. Another question that was asked here, Lauren said, where's the text to add LinkedIn to our email letters from Infusionsoft? Currently, we don't have the LinkedIn buttons in Infusionsoft in the social portion. Working with our team to get those in there. I don't yet have an ETA for you on when those will appear there. As always, what you can do is simply insert an image. You can pull in a LinkedIn image. If you're doing a lot of B2B and wanting to connect with people via LinkedIn, just grab a LinkedIn image and place that there in using an image snippet in your email, and then you can turn that image into a link directly to your profile and just invite people to connect with you that way. Let's see. couple other questions I'm reading through right now. Another feedback here from Mike. Thanks for the excellent overview on how to improve use of LinkedIn. Pat, really loving it a bunch as well. I want to throw something up here real quick. Typically, we do a poll, and want to get some feedback from you guys. How would you rate the content here on today's call? Before we wrap up, just give me some quick feedback. Let me know how we're doing on that one. That helps us know, is this the kind of stuff we want to bring back in the future? More guests like Carrie, or maybe if she's got some more information she wanted to share, if we should invite Carrie back to cover some of that as well. So go ahead and give me some feedback on that one. I'll leave that up for about 10 more seconds. Carrie, was there anything else that, while they're taking this poll, any other thoughts that you wanted to cover?
Not that I can think of. Like I said, it really comes back to making sure that what you decide to do, if you haven't been real active on LinkedIn and you're going to get active on LinkedIn, I definitely recommend that you kind of set some realistic expectations for what you can do with it, and making sure that maybe you start with your profile first, get that up to speed, kind of commit to a time, give yourself maybe a week or 2-week deadline, and then from there start with one of the strategies, start using one strategy to kind of get you launched out there. And when you start doing that on a consistent basis, that's where you're really going to see the return, and then it's likely going to open up more time. If you're seeing more and more referrals coming in, or prospects coming in from LinkedIn, now you're willing to invest a little bit more time into it. So I always just caution people, don't jump in with both feet. Make sure you're cautious, and you kind of walk into the water slowly, so that what you're doing is actually going to stick and you can be consistent with it.
Awesome. As I've been preparing with you this week for this webinar, I've been thinking about my LinkedIn profile, going, holy cow, I don't even know if I have a picture up there yet. Like, I'll do a little bit more on Facebook and on Twitter, but LinkedIn definitely hasn't been on my, the front of my social media list. And the things that we've talked about here today, I'll be jumping on this weekend to update some things and update my current position. I don't even think that's accurate, and a number of things like that, of how I can start connecting with people and really building better relationships to serve others, as well as to allow them to serve me in return with referrals and helping connect people with the right resources and such. So, Carrie, we really appreciate you taking the time here to be with us today, to share with us what you've learned over the years in LinkedIn, and how we can really take our LinkedIn usage to the next level, really make those connections, really start to discover who it is that we can connect with, and really be laser focused in creating those types of relationships, asking for very direct referrals to help really maximize the investment that we're putting in there. So thank you very much for joining us today.
Thank you, and thank you for giving me this opportunity as well.
Absolutely. We appreciate having you here. So if you guys have any follow-up questions, if you have any big successes and wins with LinkedIn, maybe you get in and get your profile updated, give me a shout out. Take your pick on which social network you want to. Give me a shout out. Give Carrie a shout out on that one as well. Let us know how you're doing, or some of the successes that you have along the way. And with that, we're going to go ahead and wrap it up for today. Again, thank you so much for being here. Join us for the Mastermind call. Look forward to email coming out next week for what next week's topic is going to be. And if you want to put in any input on that, check out mastermindwebinars.uservoice.com. I link to that each week in my email notifications, and you can go in and vote up some topics that we have over there, or submit some topics of your own. So again, thank you so much for joining us here today, and I invite you to have a great afternoon. We'll catch you next week.